So this video is specifically on science fiction and fear, and this is going to be like a little video essay as to what science fiction is, why we're afraid of it, and why we enjoy seeing that fear realized through science fiction. So first of all, what is science fiction? So my definition of science fiction is imaginings / speculations of how our world / species would respond to an unknown variable. And examples of this are like Planet of the Apes. So what if we travelled through space and time and then experienced depression at the hands of another what would happen then? And then you get to see that realised through the film. And so for me, doing my own research, I believe it could be argued that science fiction is a study of humanity, and because we know how we respond in certain situations because of our history and because of the fact that we've had philosophers, historians, psychologists. We've been studying ourselves for ages, and we have lots and lots of evidence because of our history of how we respond given certain environments, certain situations, all that sort of stuff. So sci-fi kind of uses this knowledge of how we would behave in certain situations, under certain conditions, environments, and basically makes... I use the phrase educated guesses just because I don't want to say... and it makes predictions, but really they are very, very educated guesses based on how we would respond to unknown variables. So Planet of the Apes, for example, started with a thought experiment of literally before the franchise, before the remakes, before all that sort of stuff. It was the creator of the Twilight Zone, and he sat down with some people and he thought, what would it be like for a white male to experience oppression at the hands of another race?
Take your stinking paws off me, you damn dirty ape!
And that is literally the thought which Planet of the Apes turned into. You know, that obviously apes being very close to humans, you know, like it still allows a level of relatability between us and them. And you can kind of take that with any science fiction and just, you know, question like, what would happen if? So what would happen if a robot became self-aware and began comparing the way that it operates to comparing to the way that we operate?
To protect humanity, some humans must be sacrificed. To ensure your future, some freedoms must be surrendered.
Where would that lead? And then we use our experience and our examples of this to kind of like follow the train of thought. So like, where would that lead? Would the robot then come to the conclusion that it was more efficient and therefore should get rid of us? And then what would that look like? And then they make a film about that. Or what would happen if aliens landed on Earth?
What is it you want us to do?
What would happen if what's the world going to look like in 50 years, 100 years, 1,000 years? Sci-fi to me starts off with that thought of what if, and then uses our history and our understanding of ourselves to literally just play the tape forward and just see what would happen given those conditions. Which is kind of why sci-fi is really, really cool, because it is literally potential futures realised on screen, because we know that we will behave the way that we've always behaved. There are certain elements of our human experience, of our species, which never fade, like you know, our emotions and the way in which we respond to them. So imagining these scenarios, or if you want to be a little bit more scientific about it, conducting these experiments, these thought experiments, can create a feeling of fear within us. And because you look at the results, right? You say, what if? And then you play it forward. And then you watch how, given evidence, we would behave. And then you go, oh, that's not good.
You're much stronger than we are. You're smart as hell. No matter what you say, you'd eventually replace us. That's the law of nature.
You go, oh dear, I wouldn't want to behave like that, but I know that given the scenarios, there would, maybe if it wasn't me, there would be people who would behave like that.
There are times when it is necessary to abandon our humanity, to save humanity.
And so, to see ourselves and the way that we would behave / respond to it is scary, because we see how impulsive we can be, how violent and irrational we are when exposed to stress.
So emotional!
And like, that's not like a belief, that's fact. When we're exposed to stress, we behave irrationally, violently, and irrationally. So we just... I think I said irrationally twice there, but it doesn't matter. We're just going to brush past it. Because we know, we look at our history, the way we've responded in the past, and the way that we respond in the present. You know, Planet of the Apes was written in the 1960s, and that was literally as they were going through a massive cultural reshuffle, and they were using how people were responding to that specific thing to then show how their characters were responding on screen. So it's not... It's defined as science fiction, as in fiction, not fact, but it's pretty close to fact. It's more just looking at, you know, how we behave. And so the spaceships and the different species and all that sort of stuff helps distance us a little bit from the feelings of, oh my god, we really do behave like that. But the message is clear. And this message of, you know, we're irrational, we're unreasonable, we can be violent when scared, when we respond to our emotions and don't feel in control, you know, we don't do so well, that frightens us. And this brings us round to like science fiction and its link with fear. Science fiction can frighten us because, as I said, it's like the study of humans, and I believe that we're scared of ourselves. We're scared of being seen for what we are or how we perceive ourselves. And this fear that we experience when watching science fiction, I believe, is a fear that everybody has in common. As in, you know, the kind of fear of the unknown, fear of what we don't understand, fear of being judged, fear of ourselves and our lowest traits. And like I said, I believe that we all share a common experience as a human of being afraid. And sci-fi gives us a platform to express these fears, as well as to experience them. So not only do the creators get to say, oh man, what if I'm quite afraid of this, I'd like to give this a voice, but we also then get to experience that fear through watching the science fiction. Just one moment, please. That's good. So yeah, you watching science fiction is you watching what you fear being realized. And listening to it like that, I kind of think to myself, why on earth would we enjoy that experience? You know, why would we enjoy being afraid? And I believe there's a lot of answers to that question. But for me, why I enjoy being afraid is because it's familiar. It's what I'm used to. I've experienced fear in the past, and to experience fear in the present feels normal. And like I said, we all share it. It's something that we can all connect on, that we're afraid to some extent. Even you know, like the people who are, you know, like put on the tough exterior, those are the people who are most afraid, because they are literally building walls up to hide behind, you know, of toughness or of
Their little homoerotic gang of mustaches.
And that's what it looks at. Specifically, again, referring back to Planet of the Apes, the white male, the stoic, kind of like cigar smoking, you filthy ape, like that real expression of a toxic element of our species. I'm not saying, yeah, just looking at that toxic element of our species, you see how afraid he is when he is no longer the one in control. When he is no longer the master of his own destiny. Because I believe that humans, we tell ourselves a lie that we're in control.
Look at me, sure. Look at me, sure. I'm the captain now.
I chose what tea I was going to drink, so therefore I have a measure of control over my life. And the illusion of control kind of serves to make us feel safe, but really, we're not in control.
Leave us.
No, you stay here. I'm in charge.
Do you feel in charge?
If we look at, science and how our species came to be, we were an accident. Like, we were floating on a rock in space as bacteria, and then exposure to the sun and certain, variables. There were fish people, and then some of them fish started walking on land, and here we are, and like, we're not really in control of anything. And a natural response to fear is to seek security and to seek control and to look into, I feel afraid, what can I do to support myself with that? Well, I can take charge of the things that I am in control of. I can choose which tea I drink. I can steer the narrative. And we tell ourselves that we're in control. We're deciding how we behave. But really we're not. And I think that's something which sci-fi is really effective at giving a voice to. That we're not in control, and that for all our, beliefs that we're better than our lowest traits and all that sort of stuff, given stress, given an unknown variable, we revert back to type almost every time. And it takes a lot of effort to not do that. And I think it's also important to mention that within our brains, the chemistry of our brains, when we're afraid, we get a little bit of dopamine. We get a rush of chemicals. It's like the adrenaline starts pumping, we start to feel alive and within ourselves, and we connect to that like biological hunter-gatherer, is my life under threat type stuff. And that makes us feel good. To feel adrenaline is to feel alive and in your body and feel like you have power. And as a species which is historically not in control of itself, to feel in control of yourself is a desirable feeling. So if sci-fi gives us that little bit of adrenaline, that little bit of fear, and that mix of chemicals which can help us feel like, ooh, it's something which is enjoyed by everybody. As I said, I believe that humans all share the common feeling of being afraid. And seeing that released seeing that realized through science fiction and through these kind of thought experiments which spawn off is fascinating. Like, I personally love science fiction. Like Planet of the Apes is an incredible film, and I imagine it was the type of thing which they didn't really know how retrospective and how accurate it was. They were just, making something that they were interested in. But Planet of the Apes, fantastic example. Even the remakes, because they're based more in the modern age and how us as humans now would respond to the same thing. And so while there's slight variations, it's still expressing that fear and looking at how through our actions we could potentially cause our own downfall.
The irony is we created you. We tried to defy nature, bend it to our will. Nature has been punishing us for our arrogance ever since.
So science fiction, fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. And I think there's so much that playing the tape forward and looking at how we would behave given previous evidence, it has such value for us as people. So yeah, that is my kind of like, it's a very quick look at what I think sci-fi is about, why I think it's important. But I hope you enjoyed it. This was brought on because it was part of the course to do an essay on it. But as I started typing and researching, I realized how fascinating sci-fi and the reflection on us as people was. And so I wanted to make a video about it. One, to kind of talk about that and express that. But two, because I hate writing essays. I'm dyslexic, I've got ADHD. Like, sitting down and like writing this script for this video was painful enough in itself. Writing a 1,500 word essay, it fries my processor. And I just end up, you know, feeling a lack of motivation. So, like I said, I hope you enjoyed the video, but it was more a supportive technique for myself than it was, yeah, to share my feelings on it. So, yeah.